Shalom, everyone. Praise Yah for you all tonight. Joining us for our weekly Bible study. Pastor Battle here, as you all know. It's a beautiful day. It's a wonderful day, the day that Yah has made. So we're going to continue to rejoice even in the evening and be glad in this day. He's awesome. He's good. We're going to be dealing with part 3 tonight of compassion of Mashiach, or the Messiah. Dealing with compassion. The word says in Philippians chapter number 2, says that the same mind that was in the Messiah be in you. And what mind was in the Messiah? Humility, self-denial. He denied his own self-interest. He did not make it about him, but he come here to do his Father's will, and so he did. And because of his obedience to the Father, he has a name that's above every name. Now, the word name is meaning his reputation, his character, who he is above anybody. Not just the name of Yeshua, because the name of Yeshua was a common name in that day, in Yeshua's day. But his character, who he is, what it represents, is above everybody. So we're going to deal tonight again with the compassion of Hamashiach, part 3. We're going to begin with a word of prayer. We're going to dive into it. Yah, we thank you for your mercy. Thank you, Yah, for your loving kindness. Thank you for being so good to us, for you are truly our strength. We pray and ask that you forgive us of all our sins, the things that we've done intentionally, Yah, or unintentionally. We just pray for forgiveness, and we thank you for your hesed, your loving kindness, your mercy, your grace. Thank you, Yah, that you've given us Yeshua to die on our behalf and be resurrected to life, and now because of him we're reconciled back to you. So we thank you for awakening your people, Yah, waking up the 12 tribes of Israel, Yah, and helping them to come back into the knowledge of you and who they are, and begin to open up your Torah and begin to walk in your ways and to put down man-made religion. So Yah, we thank you. We ask you tonight, as we study your word, that you would increase our trust, our faith in you. For your word says that faith, trust comes by hearing by your word. So give us your word to be strengthened, to continue to seek your face, to grow in truth, to be convicted of sin. Yah, we need you, and we just thank you for being awesome. Teach us, Yah, how to love our enemies and how to love our neighbor as our own individual selves, how to get past our feelings, to not be overtaken by our emotions when it comes to doing what's right from your perspective. So, Yah, we thank you and we just glorify you in Yeshua HaMashiach's name. Amen. Amen. So we're gonna start back again. We're gonna go back again tonight to Mark, our first chapter. Our first book we're gonna look into is gonna be the Gospels of Mark, chapter number 5. And we're going to deal with, again, the lady that Yeshua had healed, who had the issue of blood, his compassion that he had, and who the lady can represent. The lady can represent Israel. She can represent bleeding. Israel is bleeding, leaking, unclean, and they're seeking out the Most High, and how he will heal his people based on their trust. Yeshua has compassion. We need to have compassion. This lady, let's get on into it. We're gonna start at Matthew 5, and we're gonna begin at verse 21. Matthew 5. Excuse me, not Matthew. I'm sorry, Mark. Mark 5, verse 21. Yeshua crossed in the boat to the other side of the lake, and a great crowd gathered around him. There came to him a synagogue official, Yair by name, or Jairus is in some of you all's Bible, Yair by name, who fell at his feet and pleaded desperately with him. My little daughter is at the point of death. Please come and lay your hands on her so that she will get well and live. He went with him, and a large crowd followed, pressing all around him. Among them was a woman who had a hemorrhage for 12 years, and had suffered a great deal under many physicians. She spent her life savings, yet instead of improving, she had grown worse. She had heard about Yeshua, so she came up behind him in the crowd and touched his robe. For she said, "If I touch even his clothes, I will be healed." Instantly the hemorrhaging stopped, and she felt it in her body that she had been healed from the disease. At the same time, Yeshua, aware that power had gone out from him, turned around in the crowd and asked, "Who touched my clothes?" His Talmudim responded, "You see the people pressing in on you, and still you ask, 'Who touched me?'" But he kept looking around to see who had done it. The woman, frightened and trembling because she knew what had happened to her, came and fell in front of him and told him the whole truth. "Daughter," he said to her, "your trust has healed you. Go in peace and be healed of your disease." While he was still speaking, people from the synagogue official house came, saying, "Your daughter has died. Why bother the rabbi any longer?" Ignoring what they had said, Yeshua told the synagogue official, "Don't be afraid. Just keep trusting." He let no one follow him except Kepha, Yaakov, and Yochanan, or Peter, James, and John. Yochanan is Yaakov's brother. When they came to the synagogue official's house, he found a great commotion, with people weeping and wailing loudly. On entering, he said to them, "Why all this commotion and weeping? The child isn't dead, she's just asleep." And they jeered at him. But he put them all outside, took the child's father and mother and those with him, and went in where the child was. Taking her by the hand, he said to her, "Talitha kumi," which means, "Little girl, I say to you, get up." And at once, the girl got up and began walking around. She was 12 years old, and everybody was utterly amazed. He gave them strict orders to say nothing about this to anyone, and told them to give her something to eat. Now, our first story, because we see Yeshua's compassion, we see that Yeshua, he's on the other side of the lake in the Geronimo's territory, where he meets a man. The man's name is Legion, where Yeshua cast demons out of this man. And the man was out of his mind. The man would cut himself. People was afraid to go near him. He would break irons off his feet, and there was no one at all strong enough to control him. And he wandered around through the caves and to the hills every day and every night until he saw Mashiach. And when he saw Mashiach, he came and surrendered himself to him, and he talked to him, and Yeshua asked what was his name, said his name was Legion, for there are many. And he cast out those spirits out of the man and put them into unclean animals, into swine, pig. So now, I thought this has happened. Yeshua, he come back across to the other side of the lake where a crowd meets him. When he comes back, he sees Yair, who's at the point of probably breaking down. The word says when he meets Yeshua, that he falls down at his feet. Some they can indicate to be a form of worship, as he fell down and worshiped him and began to speak, or just he was in a position that he did not know what to do. He was at a loss. It was his daughter at the point of death. But he had trust to who Yeshua was. Let me explain something. When people approach Yeshua in the scriptures, everyone that he did miracles for, everyone that he healed, they had to acknowledge who he was. And so Yair falls down and said, "Hey, I need you to come. My little girl's at the point of death. Please come and lay your hands on her. Lay your hands on her and she will get well and live." Now, in the Torah, when they would lay hands, it's the Hebrew word smikah or simikah, which means it's a transference. When you look in one of the epistles, I don't know exactly which one, it says when there's any sick among you, let them be anointed with oil, and you can lay hands on the sick, and they shall recover. Because what happens is a transference. In the Torah, they would lay their hands on their animal before they sacrificed their animal, and the sins of the individual would transfer to the animal, and the animal would be sacrificed, and the individual's sins would be forgiven. Now let's push pause, take a note on this. What I said this. Now I heard people say, some people's mind think the Torah is just about sacrifice. But that's not all entirely what the Torah is about. Yes, in the Torah, there was what we call the sacrificial system, where animals were sacrificed for unintentional sin inadvertently by mistake, and then once a year they had what we call Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, to cover the error of Israel, of the sins. And the high priest would go in behind the veil, behind the curtain, and sacrifice for his sins and also for the people of Israel. And listen, that did work. It did work. Those people's sins were forgiven because Yah's word cannot be taken away. They was forgiven. But it only lasted for a year. When Yeshua went behind the veil once and for all, and he purified our consciousness also from dead work, he cleansed us from the inside out. Now back to the lesson. So it was to be a transference. So Yeshua, I'm pretty sure Yeshua, seeing the man's condition, hearing the man talk to him, communicate to him about his daughter, he is going to heal this man's daughter. Now on his way, there is a woman who has heard about Yeshua. This woman heard about Yeshua. This woman heard about Mashiach. Now listen, in Yeshua's day, he was a popular man. He was well known. Don't allow religion or the adversary or people to tell you that Yeshua wasn't well known or was hated. He was not necessarily hated by his own people. No, he wasn't. Now you have some leaders, such as the Pharisee that he would tend with or contend with, or the Torah teachers or the Sadducees that he would have some disagreements with and confrontations with. But remember, when Yeshua died, you had Pharisees who were born again. So all the Pharisees were not the enemy of Yeshua. All of the Torah teachers were not Yeshua's enemies, and all of the Sadducees were not his enemies. You had just certain leaders that was enemies of Yeshua. But the people of his time understood who he was. They followed him by the thousands. If they did not follow him by the thousands, he would have never been able to feed more than 5,000 people from 2 fish and five loaves. So they followed him. So he was known. And at times when people met him, came to him, they understood that he was Mashiach. And so this man comes to him and says, "Hey, my daughter, man, is sick. I need you to move." So as Yeshua is going, there's a woman who has heard about him. And she thinks within herself that she can just touch his robe, his clothes, or the hem of his garment, or the tzitzit, that she can be made whole. This woman right here was an unclean woman. She was unclean because she had a hemorrhage. She leaked blood. She was not even supposed to be inside the camp, inside the city walls, because she was considered an unclean woman. And she definitely was not supposed to touch anyone, because as I said, things transferred. Just like Zera'at, leprosy, it transferred. That's why people were sitting outside of the camp. So now she thinks within herself that if she can just touch the hem of his garment, that she can be made whole. Now I had a friend that I met with this past Sunday, and we were talking as we were enjoying lunch, and we were talking about this woman, and he made a reference that I agree with, that he was saying the woman can represent Israel. and Israel's bleeding, and Israel's hemorrhaging, and Israel's being unclean, and seeing Yeshua as the one that can heal Israel and take Israel out of their condition, or out of our condition, out of the state that we're in, based on our trust in Hamashiach, based on what we hear. Now, Yeshua was heard about, according to John 1, the word says, let's go to John 1, because I'm trying to build something or set something up. The Gospel of Yochanan, John chapter 1. Let me say this. John chapter 1, verse 1, let me say this. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with Yah, and the Word was Yah, and He was with Yah in the beginning, and all things came to be through Him. And without Him, nothing made had being. In Him was life, and the life was the light of mankind. And the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not suppressed it. So, and Yeshua refers to Himself as the light. And Yeshua is the Word. So this woman, she hears about Yeshua, and as she hears about Hamashiach, her faith increased, her trust increased. And I just read what I read there. It said this, that trust comes by hearing, and hearing by the Word. Now this woman heard the Word. She heard about Yeshua and what He did. You know, there's no telling how long Yeshua had been on the scene, but I'm sure that he's done many things by now, and people have heard. He has grown a great reputation among people of speaking with authority, of healing, you know, of correcting things. So she hears about Yeshua, and she thinks within herself, if I can just touch His clothes, then I'll be made whole, that I can be healed. She had. Let's read this. Let me show you something. Beginning at we're gonna start at verse 24, and listen to this. He went with him, and a large crowd followed, pressing all around him. Among them was a woman who had had a hemorrhage for 12 years, and had suffered a great deal under many physicians. So this woman had a hemorrhage for 12 years, and she was suffering, under doctors, under physicians, under people who claimed to be able to heal her. And all these people who claimed to be able to heal her was never ever able to bring healing to this woman's body. She had spent a great deal. She had spent her life savings. So this woman, instead of going to Hamashiach, she's going to other physicians. And she's suffering under these physicians. And as she's suffering under these physicians, this woman has spent her life savings. She's broke. She don't have anything. And yet, after spending her life savings, the word says, yet instead of improving, she had grown worse. She hemorrhaged, grown worse, under the hands of other physicians. But she hears about Yeshua HaMashiach. So she came up behind him in the crowd and touched his robe. She touched the tzitzit, the tassels at the bottom of his robe. Now, let's go to Numbers 15. And let me show you what the tzitzit represent. We go to Numbers 15. We're going to begin at verse 37. Go to Torah. Numbers 15, verse 37. Hallelujah. Says, Yah spoke to Moshe. Speak to the people of Israel, instructing them to make through all of their generations the tzitzit on the corners, tzitzioids on the corners of their garments, and to put with the tzitzit on each corner a blue thread. It is to be a tzitzit for you to look at. Listen, because this is what the tzitzits represent, or the tzitzioid represent. It is to be a zit for you to look at and thereby remember all of y'all's misvotes and obey them. To remember all of y'all's misvotes. The misvotes is the Hebrew word for commands or commandments. So the zits is for us to have throughout all of our generations. That means to this day, in 2019, that the Israelites are still supposed to be wearing zit throughout all of our generations. And the zit is to help us to remember Yah's commands and obey them. If the zit is supposed to be made throughout all our generations, and we got to remember the commands and obey them, there is no way the Torah could be done away with, especially if Yah doesn't change. But anyway, so that you won't go around wherever your own heart and eyes lead you to prostitute yourselves, but it will help you remember and obey all my mitzvot and be holy for your God. I am Yahuwah your Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Egypt in order to be your Elohim. I am Yahuwah your Elohim. So the zits are to keep us in remembrance of Yah's word, his commandments, and obey them, so we won't go around wherever our own heart would take us or lead us to prostitute ourselves. It will help us to remember and obey the mitzvot, the commandments, and be holy for our God. So this woman sees Yeshua, and she sees those zits, and those zits, she has to understand it, because this woman right here has to be an Israelite. And she has it because Yeshua says this: I am come for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. And he's teaching to Yah's people, trying to reconcile Yah's people back to Yah. Because we have gotten so far off track, have gone so far astray. Things are happening in our lives. Poverty, war, disease, sickness, all kind of things. And Yeshua is here to bring us back. In spite of us. In spite of how unclean we are, in spite of how broken we are, in spite of whose hands we have suffered at, he has come to bring us back to Yah. Yes, sir. And if you can accept him as your Messiah, he can reconcile you back to Yah, and you can be redeemed. And you can begin to walk a redeemed lifestyle. And he'll make you whole. Yes, sir. He'll make you whole. So now anyway, so we're going to go back to Mark, chapter number 5, then we're going to jump over to number 9 in a minute. But she says, if I can just touch the hem of his garment or the bottom of his robe or the zit. She said that she thought this within herself, how she'll be made whole. And so now, as soon as she touched him, the word says instantly the hemorrhaging stopped, and she felt in her body that she had been healed from the disease. At the same time, Yeshua, aware that power had gone out from him, turned in the crowd and asked, who touched my clothes? And when she touched him in faith. She touched him in trust, and she had real trust. And her trust that she had in being healed was confirmed in her own body. Immediately, the bleeding stopped. I guarantee you, immediately as she touched him, she was strengthened. She had strength. And when she touched Mashiach, she was strength. And Yeshua felt the power come from him. Because through trust, through faith, you can move Yah. Through trust, through faith, you get Yah's attention. Yah will stop and respond to you to your trust. Now, Yeshua is in a crowd. Yeshua HaMashiach is in a crowd. He's in a crowd. He's going. Listen, when he crossed back over to the other side, it's already a crowd waiting on him. And as he gets on the side, Yair meets him. And when Yair meets him, the crowd, I can guarantee you, hears Yair speak. Yair falls at his feet, drawing attention probably to himself and Hamashiach. And so now the crowd is going to see Yeshua heal this man's daughter, who's lying at the point of death. And if Yeshua don't get there, she ain't going to make it according to her father. And so now Yeshua got a whole lot of folks around him. They probably all up against him, walking and talking and everything. And so this woman touching him, her touch alone could not have been what has gotten his attention, because everybody else touching him. Let's look at this. Verse 30. Mark 5:30 said, at the same time Yeshua aware that power, and when she touched him, she felt instantly that she was healed. And at the same time she felt she was healed, Yeshua was aware that power had gone out from him. He turned around in the crowd and asked, who touched my clothes? Who touched the tzitzit? Who touched the commands of Yah? Who reached out by trust? Because listen, this woman had to have in her mind about the tzitzit making her holy. Understand, the tzitzit bring you into remembrance of Yah's word, so that we would not follow our own heart, prostitute ourselves. But it would help us to remember his commands, and so we can be holy. And this woman in her mind was unholy. Let me explain to you the temple. The people, you can only go to the temple to make sacrifices if you were whole, if you were clean. You can go and you can bathe in the mikvahs, and you can become clean, and you can enter into the temple. But this woman had a hemorrhaging that wouldn't stop, and she was hemorrhaging for 12 years. And you could not even get into the mikveh until your menstrual cycle was off. So she was unclean. And by her being in her mind unclean, she couldn't do sacrifices. And by her not being able to do sacrifices, she was a sinner. She had not had her sins forgiven. So she was in a state of being unclean. She was in an unholy state. But she, in her mind, remembered the commands of the Most High. And she thought within herself, if I can just touch the hem of his garment, if I can just touch the robe, the edge of his clothes, the tzitzit, I'll be made whole. And so she put herself in harm's way. She came in to the city upon her hearing about Yeshua HaMashiach. And she said within herself, if I can touch, I'll be healed. And when she touched Yeshua, she was immediately whole. And he felt power come from him because he responded to her touch, because he said, who touched my clothes? So he knew that someone had touched the commands of Yah. He knew that someone had reached out to the commands of Yah, that someone had Yah's word in remembrance, and they went to Yah's words, and in response, they were made whole. And he turned around and touched her. And he asked, who touched me? And the woman said, and the word says this. Verse 33 says the woman frightened and trembling because she knew what had happened to her, came and fell down in front of him and told him the whole truth. The truth make you free. Before we continue with Jairus or Yair, let's go to 1 John chapter 1. Let me show you something. 1 John chapter number 1. She confessed. She told him the whole truth. She told him, about her life, about what she had been dealing with, how she had spent all her money to be made whole, and she was exhausted from spending the money. She spent all her life savings. She probably was poverty-stricken, probably was forsaken by people, didn't have anyone to help her. Understand this. This woman probably was a single woman, probably had no husband, probably had no children, not knowing her condition. And the woman was in a position that she was in bad shape. She was unclean. She was unholy. First John 1, we're going to start by at verse 8. 1 John 1 and 8 says, if we claim not to have sin, we are deceiving ourselves, and the truth is not in us. Verse 9 says this, if we acknowledge our sins, then since he is trustworthy and just, he will forgive them and purify us from all wrongdoing or unrighteousness. So this woman in Mark 5, let's go back. Mark 5, verse 32 says this, but he kept looking around to see who had done it. The woman, frightened and trembling, because she knew what had happened to her, came and fell down in front of him and told him the whole truth. She was frightened. She knew what had happened to her. She confessed. She told what she was dealing with. He made her whole. That's one case. That's compassion. Because he hit an unclean woman. He didn't rebuke her for touching him. He didn't scorn her. He didn't draw back from her. He understood her condition. You know, she wasn't supposed to touch him. He wasn't concerned about that. Because he understood touching me is going to be a transference. Don't you know that Yah's holiness transfers? When Moshe saw the angel standing in the bush was on fire, not being consumed, and the man wasn't burning up, it was a strange sight to Moses. So when he goes over there to see this sight, the man calls to him from the bush. When he gets there, he tells him, take your shoes off or your sandals off from your feet, for you are on holy ground. Why did he tell him to pull his sandals off? Because he was on holy ground. He didn't want the holiness to transfer to Moshe's sandals, but the holiness had to be transferred to Moshe. Yah's holiness, it transfers, just like uncleanliness transfers. And her uncleanliness did not transfer to Yeshua, but instead through her trust, by her trust, she was made healed. His cleanliness, his wholeness, him being all that he is, transferred to her. And she was made whole by touching the zitzit, the commands of Yah, by adhering to the word of Yah. Now, verse 35 said, while they were still speaking, some people came to the synagogue official's house from the house and told him your daughter had died. Yeshua, already on the mission, is not concerned about the circumstances. Is not concerned about what the people are saying. But he's on a mission to heal this man's daughter. Now Yeshua is on a mission to heal this man's daughter because of the man's trust in him believing who Yeshua is. This man is a synagogue official. So he's someone that works in the synagogue. Maybe a teacher, not knowing what he is. But he's someone who has an understanding of who Yeshua is. And so now him going with Yeshua to get his daughter whole. They come to him. Don't bother him any longer. Don't bother the rabbi any longer. The word says in verse 36, ignoring what they said, Yeshua told the synagogue official, don't be afraid, just keep trusting. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid, just keep trusting. Keep trusting. Don't allow the circumstances to get the best of you. Don't allow what they've said to have you not trusting Yah. Just keep trusting. So now here, listen to this. Verse 38 says, when they came to the synagogue official's house, he found a great commotion and people weeping and wailing loudly. On entering, he said to them, why all this commotion and weeping? This child isn't dead. She's just asleep. Now listen, the people that already came to the man and said, don't bother the rabbi any longer. Don't bother the rabbi any longer. The girl's dead. Yeshua didn't stop and start telling them, we got to make funeral arrangements. He didn't stop and begin to pray and ask y'all to give them comfort and strength in their heart in their time of bereavement. No, he kept on with the mission. And listen, here's the word, because you have to see the word. Here's the word. Yeshua crossed in the boat to the other side. This is verse 21. To the other side of the lake, and a great crowd gathered around him. There came to him a synagogue official, Yair by name, who fell at his feet and pleaded desperately, my little daughter is at the point of death. Please come and lay your hands on her so that she would get well and live. Here's his trust. He went with him. Him going with him was assurance from the Mashiach that he's going to heal this man's daughter. And that man has to believe that Yeshua is going to keep going with him in spite of the circumstances. Now on the way, as they're going, something else transpired. A little distraction may have come up. Yeshua walking, who touched me? The Talmudim stopped. The man probably stopped. And then, listen, it had to be a little break in and walking going to the man's house because the word says that the woman told Yeshua everything that happened to her. That took more than 2-3 minutes. And he responded to her, your trust has made you whole. Your trust has healed you. And he goes on. So the man already has some stuff going on in his mind. He's probably already dealing with being patient. You know, patience is the highest form of discipline. And being impatient will cause you to break down. It'll cause you to give in. It'll cause you to walk away and throw in the towel. Being impatient. Patience is a fruit of the Spirit. It's something that's given to you from Yah. The word says, through trust and patience, you shall inherit the promise. See, y'all don't always give us a time limit on when he's going to do something for us. But if he says he's going to do it, then we have a responsibility to trust him at that word and not be moved by the commotion. Not be persuaded by the words of others if we already see Yeshua is going with us. So the man is going. The man gets some news while he's walking with Yeshua. He didn't get news from Yeshua. He got news from the people. Don't bother the rabbi. Leave him alone. The girl is dead. Evidently, these folks didn't have faith and they did not believe in who Yeshua was to even say that. But the man, he trusted. So as they're going, they get there. It's a commotion. It's wailing going on. Yeshua first addresses the commotion. Why all the commotion? Why all the commotion and all the weeping? Then he responds. He talks in trust. He said the child isn't dead. She's just asleep. And they jeered at him. They jeered at him. What you mean she's asleep? Man, you crazy. Man, that girl dead. They all kind of stuff. She ain't breathing. You sure said she's not dead. She's just asleep. But whose word are you going to believe? And sometimes you have to put the naysayers away. You got to put them out. Yeshua put them all outside. Took the child's father and mother and those who he brought with him. Peter, James, and John. They went in where the child was. He tell the little girl, get up. He said to her, little girl, I say to you, get up. Talita Kumi. Which means, little girl, I said to you, get up. And at once, the little girl got up and began walking around. She was 12 years old. Everybody was utterly amazed. She was healed by trust. She was healed by not allowing the distractions to get the best of the father and the mother. by them still being able to follow Yeshua even though they heard some sad news. That's compassion of Hamashiach. And I'm saying this to encourage you all today that regardless of what we're dealing with, no matter how long we've been dealing with, no matter how bad the circumstance may be, we have to trust Yeshua and know that he loves us in spite of it. And we got to treat each other the same way, have the same mind. We got to bear with one another, loving each other, being there for each other, going with each other, not speaking faithless words. Let's go to Mark 9. Hallelujah. In Mark 9, we're setting the scene that Yeshua and Peter, Jason, and John, they're up on what we call a high mountain. They went privately, and what some Bibles call the mountain of transfiguration, and they begin to see Yeshua change forms. They saw him change forms. Then they saw Moshe and Eliyahu or Elijah. Eliyahu speak with Yeshua. And then Peter responds, "It's good for us to be here. Let us put up sukkahs." And Yah speaks and tells, "This is my son, whom I love. Listen to him." Shema. Yah tells Peter them, "Shema. Listen to him." Now he comes down from the mountain. So we're gonna begin at Mark 9:14. When they got back to the Talmudim, they saw a large crowd around them and some Torah teachers arguing with them. As soon as the crowd saw him, they were surprised and ran out to greet him. He asked, "What is this discussion about?" What's going on? What's the discussion about? Excuse me. One of the crowds gave him the answer. "Rabbi, I brought my son to you because he has an evil spirit in him that makes him unable to talk. Whenever it seizes him, it throws him to the ground. He foams at the mouth, grinds his teeth, and becomes stiff all over." He having seizures. He can't even speak. "I asked your Talmudim to drive the spirit out, but they couldn't do it." Yeshua responds back, "People without any trust." He responded, "How do you get y'all to move? Through your trust." The spirit couldn't come out of the boy because they didn't trust. "People without any trust," he responded. "How long will I be with you? How long must I put up with you? Bring him to me." They brought the boy to him, and as soon as the spirit saw him, it threw the boy into a convulsion. Yeshua asked the boy's father, "How long has this been happening to him?" Y'all pay attention. "Ever since childhood," he said, "and it often tries to kill him by throwing him into the fire or into the water. But if you can do anything, have pity on us and help us." Because the man has a lack of trust. Yeshua said to him, "What do you mean if I can?" Everything is possible to someone who has trust. Instantly, the father of the child exclaimed, "I do trust. Help my lack of trust." When Yeshua saw the crowd was closing in on them, he rebuked the unclean spirit, saying to it, "You deaf and dumb spirit, I command you, come out of him and never go back into him again." Shrieking and throwing the boy into a violent fit, it came out. The boy lay there like a corpse, so that most of the people said that he was dead. But Yeshua took him by the hand and raised him to his feet, and he stood up. After Yeshua had gone indoors, his Talmudim asked him privately, "Why couldn't we drive it out?" He said to them, "This kind of spirit they can be driven out. This kind of spirit, this is the kind of spirit that can be driven out only by prayer. This is the kind of spirit that can be driven out only by prayer. Yeshua comes back from the mountain. So, discussion. His son, man's son, have seizures. Spirit got him seized up, he can't even talk. Yeshua's a wise man. So now listen here. They said your Talmudim, your disciples, they couldn't get the spirit out. That's what he said. He said, I brought my son to you because he has an evil spirit in him that makes him unable to talk. And whenever it seizes him, it throws him to the ground. He foams at the mouth, grinds his teeth, and becomes stiff all over. I asked your disciples to drive the spirit out, but they couldn't drive out. Yeshua responds to the man and to the people. People without any trust. The man spoke in doubt to Yeshua. Yeshua asked him, how long has this been happening? The man said, the man says, listen. He said, how long has this been happening to him? Ever since childhood. It often tries to kill him. Then the man responds with that outside of faith. The man talks in doubt. The man responds in verse part 2 of verse 22. But if you can do anything, have pity on us. Yeshua responds back. What do you mean if I can do anything? You asked me to heal him. What do you mean? If I can do anything. What do you mean? Everything is possible to someone who has trust. Listen to this man right here. Listen to this. Verse 24 says this. Instantly the father of the child exclaimed, I do trust, help my lack of trust. He trusts. What is his lack of trust? His circumstances. What he's dealing with. The situation. Yeshua said, he tells Yeshua, I do trust, but help my lack of trust. He confessed. I struggle with it. And he struggled with the trust because of the circumstances. And then when he brings this boy to the Talmudim, to Yeshua's Talmudim, who was supposedly to be men of Yah, it's not that the Talmudim didn't trust. It's the man didn't trust. The people didn't trust. Yeshua rebuked him. How long must I put up with you? People without trust. How long will I be with you? How long must I put up with you? Bring him to me. Because Yeshua walked in authority, spoke in authority. So let me explain something to you. TV Land, Facebook, YouTube, Podbean, iTunes. If you're lacking in your trust, be real with yourself. Be real to Yah to help you get out of it so he can bring deliverance to your life. Because I'm sure many of y'all out there need Most High to move on your behalf. I know that I do. And I know I got to mean what I say. I got to believe what I pray. I got to believe what I pray. I got to mean what I say when I speak to Yah. And I got to believe his word. And I got to be able to trust that he'll move on my behalf. And I understand that I'm not in I'm not in the boat by myself. That many of y'all should have to trust in him to know that he's going to move in your life. You want to have compassion of Hamashiach. One key thing you got to do is confess. Confess where you are. Confess what you deal with. Bring yourself to get in this word. Allow the Ruach HaKodesh to bring his word to your remembrance, and don't be hard-hearted. Don't be caught up in the circumstances or with the crowd, but know that he can move on your behalf through your trust. Because if you want to have compassion of Mashiach, that's one thing you got to do. You got to trust him. You got to believe in him, and you can't be moved by what you see. You can't be moved by how you feel. But you have to know what the word says. This woman that was here with this issue, she had an issue for 12 years. She had an issue for a long time. She had to believe what the word said. She had to know. Numbers had to be in her mind. These people that Yeshua is dealing with, they did not have the Gospel of Matthew and Mark, Luke, or John. They did not have the Acts of the Apostles or the emissaries. They didn't have 1st and 2nd Corinthians and Romans and Philippians and Thessalonians. They didn't have any of John 1, 2, and 3. They didn't have Peter 1 and 2. They didn't have Timothy 1 and 2. They didn't have Titus. They didn't have Revelations. These people had the Torah, the Tanakh, the Torah, the Nevi'im, and the Ketuvim, the Torah, the writings, and the prophets. So this woman had to know, based from her teachings, maybe her father, maybe some of the Pharisees, maybe some of the Torah teachers, but she had to know that the tzitzit represented the commands of Yah, and she had to trust in that. She heard of Yeshua. She heard of what he done. Not just a miracle. Let me explain something to you. If she has had any teachings from the Torah, Moses clearly tells the people, don't be caught up in the miracles. It could be Yah bringing you to the test. Because a miracle is not what qualifies Yeshua to be Mashiach, not by itself. But it had to be the message Yeshua taught. Yeshua's first sermon, Matthew 4:17, was repent. Turn from your sins to Yah, for the kingdom of Yah is at hand. Yeshua went about teaching the kingdom of Elohim. And as he taught with authority. As he proclaimed the word of Yah, demons had to tremble at him. And while he spoke with authority, demons had to come out of people. He spoke demons out. He didn't lay hands to cast out demons. He spoke and cast out demons. He laid hands and healed people. And he taught the word with authority. He didn't teach halakha, which is tradition, man-made doctrine, Pharisee teaching. He did not teach the Talmud or the Mishnah. He taught Torah. He taught from Genesis and Exodus and Numbers and Deuteronomy and Leviticus. He taught from Daniel and Lamentations. Jeremiah and Ezekiel and Isaiah, he taught the word. And as he taught the word, people's trust was boosted. And they were healed based on not just the miracles. Healing came from trusting. The casting out demons came from trusting. So all these things had to happen and can only happen based on them trusting the word that was being spoken by Yeshua. You know why we're not seeing things happening anymore in these days? Because all these preachers is trying to lay hands and cast out devils, and ain't nobody giving the word of Yah. And they complaining we don't see miracles no more. Maybe you'll start seeing Yah move in the midst when you begin to obey his commands and begin to walk in his ways. Because trust only comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of Yah. And people are only here through their trust, and their trust is not the miracle. Listen, it ain't just the laying of the hands. It ain't just speaking and come out of him. But it's them trusting Yah's word of saying how Yah will protect them and bring healing to them and bring defense for them. And we have to know these things. Hallelujah. You want to have compassion from Mashiach? Get in Yah's word. Surrender yourself to Yah. Deny your own self-interest. Have the same mind that Mashiach had. I'm going to read Philippians 2, beginning at verse 5, and then we're going to end for the night. Hallelujah. Philippians 2, beginning at verse 5. Yeah, that's how they were healed. You think miracles coming any other way? Read the word. Read the word. Trust comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of Yah. And the people, everybody that Yeshua healed, that asked him for the healing, they had to trust. They had to believe. And now when they can believe, they had to believe the word. They had to even believe what the word said about him. When Yeshua raised up Lazarus, he was dead 4 days. Pharisee tradition says that a spirit can last by a body for 3 days. So Yeshua exceeded the norm. He got past the tradition. He healed him in 4. When he raised him in 4. When he was coming to the city, he was met by Mary. She said, "Rabbi, if you were here, my brother, he'll still be here if you would have been here." She kicked down religion to him. He said, "Your brother shall live again." She kicked down tradition and religion because her mind couldn't conceive what he was saying to her. She said, "I know I'll see him again in the resurrection." And Yeshua said, "I am the resurrection. I am the one that recovers all. I am the life." She had to believe in Yeshua for her brother to get up. And when Yeshua when they had got to the tomb, they spoke in doubt. They said, "By now he stink." Yeshua wept. He made him move the stone back. Lazarus, come out. His trust in his Father made Lazarus hop up out of the tomb. Pull the clothes up off of him. That's done by trust. He is the resurrection. I was going to start at verse 5, but we're going to start at verse 1. Hallelujah. Therefore, if you have any encouragement from me, from your being in union with the Messiah, any comfort flowing from love, any fellowship with me in the Spirit, or any compassion and sympathy, then complete my joy by having a common purpose and a common love, by being one in heart and mind. Do nothing out of rivalry or vanity, but in humility. Regard each other as better than yourselves. Look out for each other's interests and not just for your own. Let your attitude toward one another be governed by your being in union with Messiah Yeshua. Though he was in the form of Yah, he did not regard equality with Yah something to be possessed by force. On the contrary, he emptied himself. And that he took on the form of a slave by becoming like human beings are. And when he appeared as a human being, he humbled himself still more by becoming obedient even to death on a stake as a criminal. Therefore Yah raised him to the highest place and gave him the name above every name. When I say the name, I don't mean Yeshua. It's a common name. But I mean he gave him a character, a reputation, who he was above every other character, every other reputation, every authority. Yeshua's above all that. He's above all principalities. As a matter of fact, the word says he sits at the right hand of the Haguvah. The word Hagivah is the power. So it says Yeshua sits in the word Hagivah means majesty. So he sits in the power of the majesty on high. And the word says that we are seated with him in heavenly places. So we are seated in that same power, in that same majesty, if we trust in him. Hallelujah. So that in honor of the name given, Yeshua, every knee will bow. In heaven, on earth, and under the earth. And every tongue will acknowledge that Yeshua, the Messiah, is Lord, to the glory of Yah the Elohim, Yah the Father. Yeshua humbled himself, became obedient through his trust. Did not allow what he dealt with to get the best of him. And then when he dealt with it, he tells his Father, if it's all possible, let this cup pass, but not what I want, what you want. After the third time praying, he denied himself. Did the will of Yah through trust. Prayed for the people before he gave the ghost up. Asked Yah to forgive them for they did not know what they're doing. And then he committed his spirit to him. He was I believe this with all my heart. And you should too. He was resurrected 3 days and 3 nights. He got it with all power. And now because of him, we can be reconciled back to Yah through our trust. Everything is done through trust. You receive mercy. You receive compassion. You receive hesed. That's grace, loving kindness through your trust. And we need to understand that. We need to know that. Hallelujah. Yeshua is good. He's awesome. He's wonderful. He's marvelous. Hallelujah. Praise Yah. I pray that you all are blessed tonight. Yeshua hit that man's son. When the adversary tries to kill you, said the spirit would seize him up where he couldn't talk. Think about that. That man's son, that man probably at all times, 24 hours a day, didn't have his eyes on his son. So imagine having your back turned, turn around and seeing your son laying down in the water about to drown because he's seized up and can't holler out for help. Or imagine the boy probably was scarred up, burns on his body because his father said the spirit at the time would throw him into the fire. So imagine that man being weary about his son. Imagine that man's son's body scarred up from the fire. Him being weary, probably being worn. No matter how long it's been going, the man probably was wore out in his mindset. But the man came clean to Yeshua. Yeshua, he said, you can do anything. Could you please hit him if you can? Yeshua said, what do you mean if I can? And when he got finished, he said, all things are possible to him that believe if you trust. The word believe, there's no Hebrew word for believe. But if you have the King James Bible, that word means to stand firm in. So it means to trust. So he said, I believe, I do trust. Then he came clean, but help my unbelief. Help my lack of trust. And Yeshua responded because he told him where he was at. And y'all did with every individual on their level of comprehension. Tell them where you are. Tell them what you deal with. Tell them how it's going. Hallelujah. And he'll respond to you and move on your behalf. Y'all, we thank you for being awesome, for being good. Help us to have compassion for our brothers. Help us to see the compassion of Yeshua HaMashiach. How much you love us, Yah. And how you've given Yeshua on our behalf. And that we can pray to you through his name. And Yah, we thank you. I pray, Yah, ask you to help us all to walk in obedience to your words. For we understand that Yeshua said that everybody that says, Lord, Lord, will not enter into the kingdom of heaven, but only those who do what you want. So Yah, help us to do what you want. Help us to stop being lazy, to stop procrastinating, to stop being disobedient, to stop holding grudges and walking in unforgiveness. Help us to turn from sin and begin to do what you want, to walk in trust. That regardless of what we're dealing with, you can heal us from any affliction. For your word says that many are the afflictions of the righteous, but you deliver us from them all. Yeah, those who are bound by drug addiction, heal them tonight. Bring them off drugs. Cast that demon out of their mind, out of their spirit, out of their heart. Cast it out of them, Yah. Those who are bound by alcoholism, cast it out of them. Those who are bound by cancer, disease, HIV, whatever the disease is, hypertension, diabetes, Yah, cast it out of them. I pray for my friend tonight as his grandfather is in a hospital and his kidneys are shut down. Heal that man's body. Bring healing to him, Yah. I pray that for the shalom in his family's mind, that they, Yah, can turn toward you. For you are our strength. You are our salvation. Your word says that you are our light and our salvation. Whom shall we fear? For you are the strength of our life. Of whom shall we be afraid? Yah, we trust in you and believe in you. Help us to be made whole, Yah. Help us to trust in you, Yah. To remember your commands, Yah. To walk in your commands. Yah, to remember what the ZZ stands for, Yah. Help us, Yah, to walk in trust, Yah. And help us where we lack at. Yah, we thank you and we glorify you. Help us, Yah, not to be caught up by the commotion. Or Yah, not to be caught up by the circumstances or the weeping and wailing of others. Or being jeered. Help us, Yah, to put the naysayers out. Yah, we thank you and we glorify you in Yeshua HaMashiach's name. Amen. You all can visit our website. That's ahavloveministry.com. You can also email us or you can message us on our Facebook page. The name of our Facebook page is called Ahav Love Ministry. You can message us through that, or you can email us. Also visit our YouTube channel, like, subscribe, share, so that people can get the word. Visit us on Podbean. You can like the Podbean station. You can subscribe to it, or you can subscribe to us on iTunes. But I pray that you all are blessed, and remember to continue to hang on to Yah's word through your trusting. Shalom.
Amen.